Well, according to my computer, it is 12:01. I'm not sure if that's exactly right, but I think I'm going to go ahead and get this party started. I'm Pearson Crutcher. I'm the Executive Director of the Society of Entrepreneurs. Thank you for joining us for our virtual Entrepreneurs Roundtable lunch. It's a new day that we get to keep doing these Zoom calls, and I'm just so glad that y'all are all here for the call today. First thing I want to do is that even though we're doing our Zoom meetings, we still have great sponsors that I want to thank. Thank you to Paragon Bank and eBiz Solutions and Behind the Scenes for being our great partners through all of our roundtable meetings. Today's meeting, we have Mike Bruns, founder of Contract Logistics and a past master entrepreneur, and Duncan Williams, our current chairman of the board of the society. And also with us, we have Jay Healy. Jay and I just wrapped up the first season of Entrepreneurial Insights Podcast, and we had so much fun working together on interviews that I asked Jay to help me out today. So welcome, Jay. Glad to have you here too.
Yeah, thank you, Pearson. It's been an honor to participate in that podcast. For those of you who haven't experienced it, you can look it up on anywhere you would listen to podcasts or go to our website, which is bluffcitybusiness.com. You can hear 12 episodes, great interviews with members of the society like Duncan Williams and Mike Bruns. So the interviews are always great. So a couple housekeeping items before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, just please type them into the Q&A box in your Zoom control panel down at the bottom. We'll have time for those questions at the end. And as Pearson mentioned, our guest today, Mike Bruns, founder of Contract Logistics, and Duncan Williams, CEO of Duncan Williams, Inc. COVID-19 has forced all of us to deal with these unprecedented challenges, and we look forward to hearing from these established leaders about how they've managed and continued to move forward this year.
Yeah, so with that, why don't we go ahead and get started? And I'm going to start with Duncan, who is, Mike says he's retired. He is the least retired person that I know. But I'm going to go ahead and ask Duncan. Duncan, I know it'll be a long list of things, but how has COVID affected your business today?
Yeah, it's been an interesting ride really since March 17th. So we made March 15th, I guess Sunday, March 15th, we made the decision that we would work from home. So at that point, we sent an email out, and however many days that is, 4.5 months, here we are, and everybody's still at home. So that's changed in a business that we have an open trading floor. To not have an open trading floor and to really talk to people like this every day is different. From an actual business standpoint, it is not. Business has been good, and the reason mainly is because there's so much unrest and questions, and when that happens, the bond business usually is a stronger thing. So we've seen business good, but it is strange how we're getting it done and what we're doing for sure. So I think the people part of it is really what's affected us most and what I miss the most for sure.
Yeah, I imagine that that's the case. What are you doing? I know that your people are all working at home. Are you doing anything to keep people connected?
We're doing a lot of this, but we're using Microsoft Teams. In fact, we have a thing that I call group hugs, or that was marketed as group hugs. And it really is me on with 5 or 6 different employees, and it's all mixed up. So, different times you're talking to different people, and I just say, 1, what can we do for you? But 2, tell us what's going on. And so everybody kind of gets a chance to connect that way. So we're using Teams pretty much 24/7. Our salespeople and employees all know they have to, anybody who's on Teams knows you can have a red button if you're on something, a yellow button if you're maybe busy, or a green button if you're open. Well, we all laugh now because we kind of require everybody to keep their buttons where we can see them, and so we know who's active. But we are really trying. We've actually brought in a person to work with all the employees to set up set up their kind of broadcasting station and their teams thing, and to make sure they look, making it look professional is important. And so how you do it, the right stuff. So we're really investing in that for the future and going, right now.
Yeah. Well, Mike, what about you? How has your life changed in the last 6 months?
Well, needless to say, it has changed. And, I'm having a difficult time with it, with a lot of the various things I'm involved with, because I think if you're a CPA type or you're a numbers guy, you're okay no matter what happens, because you can stay behind a desk and do your counting and you're living large. I mean, things are great. If you're the people person that so many of us are, and that's not to say that the numbers person is not equal to, we're all different. But if you are the people person, it's not so much fun. Sure, we get a lot of business done over the Zoom calls, and I have board meetings like everybody else, and we get these things done. But my favorite part of a board meeting was getting there early and staying late. The meeting itself, sure, business is business, and I love business. But I sure miss the people and the camaraderie that goes with it. I will tell you, though, I've noticed myself that I have fallen in a trap that there's no reason why I shouldn't be talking to more people more often. And I find myself, and I've only just come to realize this, that just because I can't see you so much anymore doesn't mean I should not talk to you. And I have a list of people that I made the other day that I haven't talked to in a while that need to be talked to. There's no reason not to have talked to them. But I think sometimes we fall backwards into this trap that COVID covers all reasons not to do anything. And therefore, we have a hall pass for all kinds of different reasons. And I'm going to make it an attempt to make sure that I stay in contact more often with the very people that I need to, whether it's for business or pleasure. And I think that would be something that I would like to share with everybody else, because if you don't stay in touch with your customers or your peers or your business relationships, they will go elsewhere.
That's an excellent point.
This has definitely been an opportunity to increase your connection with folks, whether it's family, friends, or
Well, that's right.
People from work or people from your networks. What do you see on the nonprofit perspective from the boards? How are the relationships moving forward?
Well, you're talking to me, Jay?
Yeah.
Mike? Okay. Yeah, I would say that the nonprofits really have a challenge. When I was in business, the profit business, I used to love crisis. I loved a crisis because we were the best at our game, if I do say myself, because we had the best people. And so when a crisis would come along, whether it was fuel or insurance or 9/11 or something, we would get through it because it would be an opportunity to mop up their other guys that were competing with us, quite frankly. This crisis is an interesting one because it's not a one-shot deal. Like 9/11 was a terrible crisis, or 2008 was a crisis, but it went away. This lingers, and it just doesn't seem to ever go away. And I think that's one of the bigger problems that I see with this particular crisis. What I think on the nonprofit side, Jay, is that some nonprofits that are not very stable, or they didn't have a lot in the bank going into this thing, they need to reevaluate very quickly. And I know some of them, or I wouldn't be talking like this. They need to evaluate whether they need to just cease operations for a while and don't get caught up in the fact that, well, I have a mission and this mission is so important that I've got to do it and I've got to continue to do it at all costs. And I'll borrow money, I'll do this, I'll do that. When in fact that particular nonprofit ought to take a step back and say, I think rather than losing money every month like we are, and we can't generate the income that we need to just kind of morph ourselves into not doing anything, cut the losses, and reappear later on. I don't want to see nonprofits think that they have to continue to operate like they always did with all their programs and they're hemorrhaging money as a result of it. If you're going to stick around for a longer period of time, why not cut your losses, do the things that you're able to do that at least break even and move forward. I see too many of them right now. By God, we're going to get this through this no matter what. And if I have to keep our own money, I'm going to do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
I think that point of reassessing your strategy, reassessing what you do for your clients, whether they are people in the nonprofit space or people in the business space, is important for every organization at this point. Duncan, do you have anything to add around that?
Yeah, I think Mike's, as normal, he's right on, right on target. The nonprofits I'm involved in, as you start getting into budgeting for next year, because here we are right in August and they start looking, I've really kind of suggested that there's 3 or 4 budgets. There's a vaccine discovered budget, there's a treatment budget, there's a thing is the way it is budget, and then there's a, oh hell, everything's broken loose budget. And, that's basically taking revenues down 50%. And, what are you going to do? Because a lot of the nonprofits, the ones that do have some money in the piggy bank, can make it through this and they're still getting donations. But if this thing continues to grow and the major supporters, it's going to, ultimately it will affect it. And that's where the cash flow is going to stop. So I think budgeting and being realistic is what everybody's trying to push these nonprofits to do. And, there may be an opportunity here, like Mike talked about the business world, it may be an opportunity here for nonprofits to actually there are some that should come together anyway, and maybe this pushes them in that direction.
Yeah, for sure. One question, we always ask this question during a pandemic and not, but if somebody wanted to start a business today, given the economic situation and the current situation, what advice would you have to somebody that was thinking about starting a business, Duncan? Start with you.
If you're in the restaurant or hotel, stay the hell out of it. Don't open a new business, right?
Right.
I think it's like any time. I mean, there are opportunities. And once again, Mike touched on it. When everything's going bad is usually when there's great opportunities out there. So, my feeling is there may have been a great plan laid out in mid-February of this year and you thought this business would be great, that absolutely would be horrible to open right now. There may be something none of us have ever thought about that right now would be the awesome time to open a new business in blank. So I think, like any entrepreneurial spirit, you find what's needed and you go address it and you go that way. So I don't think there's really any difference now. I think it's just a matter of picking the right business to get into.
Something like Zoom right now, right?
Something like Zoom.
Exactly. What do you think, Mike? Anything you want to add to that?
Well, no, I would say that I would agree wholeheartedly with Duncan. I would say that it's an interesting time now because things have changed so rapidly that it would be a wonderful idea to try to predict the change by everybody can peel the onion one time, but then if you get to the second layer, that's the cool part. I'll give you an example. My daughter's in the radio business and they are her station is kicking butt. I mean, just kicking butt. And I said, what is the result of, why are you guys take the lead? And I never thought of this, and this is kind of my example. She said, well, the FM 100s and the river stations and all that music that you used to listen to in offices, there is no one going in elevators. There is no one going to work and they have to listen to that. They can listen to rock. They can listen to all the stuff they wanted to because they're all home now. And so all the advertising dollars are moving over to those stations and leaving the other ones behind because no one's listening to that. Well, that's not really profound, but I would have never thought of that. Because it's just one more layer of an onion. You think, wow, that radio station is doing well because of the pandemic. And so if you can identify those type of situations, I mean, we all know liquor stores. It'd be a wonderful time to get in the liquor store business right now. But because we know people are drinking more. And so I would suggest that anyone that wanted to get into a business would have to think real hard and try to peel the onion back one more layer. And that's the guy who's going to make a killing.
always think that whatever you have to say is so profound, Mike. Liquor stores are I'm making myself a note. I do have one question, Mike. One thing that we talked about, the fact that you would be willing to discuss, and I think that it's an interesting, every time I talk to you, is the fact that you personally experienced COVID, and I would love for you to kind of share some of that experience for the people that are on the call, since they might not know somebody that's actually gone through this horrible disease.
Okay. Well, I won't get into gory details, but I mean, I did get it. I had the distinct honor of being number 31 in Shelby County. And you would think you'd get a certificate suitable for framing, for Christ's sake, by it being number 31, but nobody gave me anything. But anyway, I got it. It was a big deal because not too many people had it yet. And that presented a few problems in itself. And I went, 10, 12 days sick. I was not getting any better. So I went in the hospital, and they treated me there for 6 days, and I got out. I will say that there was a lot of controversy as a result of going in that hospital, because one of the first things they wanted to do was to test my heart to see if I could take the hydroxychloroquine. And I said, "Look at me, man. I'll take whatever you got, pal. I don't really have sides on." I'm kind of. It was kind of disgusting that thing had taken political sides already, but I took that, and it got me back up. I didn't get didn't get well real quick, but I was already turning the corner. So I got out of there. They got the pneumonia under control, and I was able to go home and live happily ever after. I think the biggest lesson that I learned was that those doctors, it's a real problem when you have been raised your whole life, and the guy that wears the white coat is the smartest guy in the room. Always has been and always will be. And when you're looking at the guy with the white coat and you're not sure you want to go to sleep that night because you're not real sure you're going to wake up in the morning, and his answers to you are, "I don't know, we'll try, I'm not sure, we'll do our best." Those phrases are very difficult to deal with when you're real sick and they don't have answers. And I think a lot of diseases, even cancer, they at least have a handle on most of that stuff. And that was probably the scariest thing, was not having a security blanket that was wearing a white coat next to you that could hold your hand and say you're going to be fine. A lot of people know the old dermatologist, old Charlie. He was four doors down on the same floor, 4 years older, and he didn't make it. And those are kind of things that they'll really work on you. So it was as much a mental thing for a while there as it was physical. But all good now, so it's, all good.
I think it's so many people don't know anybody that's personally had it, or they don't know that they know somebody that's had it. And I think, it makes me have so much more of a understanding and willingness to do the things that we need to do to keep everybody else safe, having known you. And I'm just so grateful that those doctors did know, at least somewhat, and that you are in the shape and that you're still doing so well. So thank you to the medical professionals that took good care of you.
Oh, they were the best.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Did you have any? Go ahead.
I've got a question for you both. In any time of uncertainty, that's where true leaders sort of step up to the table and get the best outcome for their organization. So this is certainly one of those instances where the need for leadership is strong, and the people who are going to do it best are probably going to get the best results. So do you have any thoughts about how to lead in this type of environment that may be different from when things are just going normal and well?
Want me to start, Mike?
Sure.
Communication. I mean, I think communication right now from leadership is so important, and it needs to be organized. It needs to be something that the employees can depend on. So every Friday we send a update, kind of what's happened that week from all the managers, reminding them blah, 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 and then a message from me or whomever. And while I've been on these calls talking to employees, I ask, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? And the thing that they continue to say we're doing right is communicate. Like, they're getting the facts. So every day I'm sending the thing from the chamber, just the updates, and I send it to everybody in the office so they can see. But also, they know we're keeping up with what we're supposed to be doing, and so I think communication is huge. I think they need to know that we're putting their health and their family's health in front of profits. I think that's another huge thing that we've made very clear, that we're not going to rush you back. We're going to take time, and we're going to do it the right way. So I think communication and caring and just letting them know that, that they really do matter is really important right now.
What about you, Mike? Do you have anything to add?
Well, I think Duncan said it right on. I mean, the communication, Duncan, is so important, as he knows, and I think leadership in the business today, handling this crisis within your own business, is more important today than ever, because we can witness that the leadership outside of our businesses has never been worse. And I don't mean this politically. What I mean is, we have some leaders who say you can walk in wet sand. Some say it's dry. Some say mask. Some say no mask. We have Shelby County schools who say you can go to school, but you can't play football. And we have others who play football, but you can't go to school. And so if there's ever a time where an employee needed somebody that they could count on, it's the person that they work for. At least give me some good, strong leadership there, because everywhere else it depends on what channel you're watching and what's the leader. So I don't mean to get political at all. It's not my point. But yeah, people are starving for leadership right now.
So the wear and tear on everybody is enormous here, and the longer it goes, the deeper the scar tissue. And
right.
And a lot of leadership, or a lot of quality of leadership, is based on energy and enthusiasm, and sometimes that's hard to bring to the table, but it's so important. So do you have anything to say about that?
Duncan, who, me?
Yeah, go ahead, Mike. I'll follow up.
Well, no. Other than what I just said, I think that, as we just said, that communication is obvious the key, and I think there has to be more compassion now. And it's probably the most difficult time for a leader within an organization to lead, because of the challenges he's facing. And the biggest challenge is that most of your culture in an organization is created by everybody being under one roof, and we're all in this together. And by God, there's a certain culture that's created by all of us being together. But when everybody's spread out at homes and you're Zooming and whatnot, that's probably as big a challenge as I've ever seen for leaders to maintain a culture of caring and concern. And it's such a pleasure to listen to someone like Duncan, who's got that under control.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's say we're trying. I mean, you know me, I like to hug up on people. I like people around me. It's, my mom came to the office every day that I can remember. And then on March 15th, I said, Mom, you can't come back to the office. Don Malmo, who is our chairman, 93 years old, right? Has been here since I've been born, has been around, and I can't let him come to the office. So I think emotionally the drain is really there. I think every day I am at the office, right? And so I've got a lot of square footage that, I don't need. And that's not saying I won't need it. I'm just saying right now it's lonely in the hallways. And so I think you've got to kind of keep pumping the stuff up. We sent everybody for 4th of July. We sent them some Central Barbecue. And then kind of every month we're trying to do something that supports the Memphis restaurants or hospitality thing and give them, orders they got to choose from, I think, Felicia or Iris or Central or with Ernie out at Hog Wild. And, whether we're just doing some different things, we're sending masks to customers and then you got to be careful because some customers don't want masks. So you got to kind of go around it in the political way of, hey, we're not suggesting you have to wear them. We're just saying here, we're trying to get out and thank you for your business. So you got to keep the culture going as much as you can, Jay. And it is really, really hard right now. But if you don't communicate and if you don't lead, then you'll sure as hell lose it. That's for sure.
You know, I mean, it is lonely at the top, and it's hard for you guys, especially as the leader of your organization. What are you doing to take care of you, Duncan? Is there anything that you're making sure you do to make sure that you stay positive? I mean, you've got to be the face, and that's got to be hard.
You know, I'm wearing tuxedos to work so I can go film for everybody. This is a cheap plug. Remember, next Saturday night at 7 o'clock on WKNO is the award show and honoring the new honorees. But, you know, honestly, I think being around the family has really been good. I think it's you forget that when you're at the office from 7 to 7 every day and the kids are growing up, and it really has been an awesome thing for me having one that's a senior in high school, one's a junior in high school, and then a 7th grader to kind of get grounded a little bit more. So I think that's been good for me. It's helped, I think, from the stress standpoint, and you talk to them and you see my daughter's going to be a senior and how hard mentally it is for her right now to her senior year is going to look like this. And so I think really getting back to the basics has been really, really good for me. That's for sure.
What about you, Mike?
I would agree. I can't think of a lot of things that have come out good for this pandemic, that's for sure. But I agree with Duncan that I've had the pleasure over the last several months of having family over all the time. I never know I got five grandkids, and you just never know. When I'm here at the office now, when I go back home, I have no clue who will be there, but I know somebody will. And that is a real, real nice, in fact, if this thing ended tomorrow, I would tell you that I've learned enough in the family relationships that I'm not going to go back to exactly the way I was and say maybe tomorrow or wait a minute. It's been a real education for me, because I think all of us, especially running businesses and whatnot, there's always tomorrow for the family. And a good family always says, okay, we can wait till tomorrow. But it's been fun that there are no tomorrows. It's right now. We might as well do it. There ain't nothing else to do. Yeah. And how much fun it has been to share the experiences and create memories that otherwise would not have been created had it not been for this. So there's some good to it.
Yeah. So that's a good example of what might be a permanent change for the better. I'll just remind everybody that if you have questions, you can go ahead and put them in the Q&A and we'll address them later. But I'd also like to ask, as a follow-up to that, Mike and Duncan, do you see any potential permanent changes going forward for businesses or individuals that may be impactful? Or we can even address schools if that's a topic you have insights into.
Well, I'll just say that I think that the last job I would want to be involved in now is commercial real estate, at least office buildings anyway. I just can't see, it's funny, when we were growing in my business, I said we got to a point in growth. This is years ago, but we got to a point where I said, I'll be damned if I'm going to build any more on this building. I'm just not going to keep doing it. And when I left the company, we had 18 people that worked from home. And I saved a lot of money by not having to build bricks and mortar to house these 18 different people. And those happen to be our most productive employees, believe it or not, because instead of Monday morning talking about the Memphis football game, they were working. And if the baby woke up at 3 a.m, they started pounding the computer. We could measure these employees' productivity, the whole bit. I did require them to come in one day a week to walk around and see people and do things, collect paychecks, turn out. But I did do that just simply because I wanted to make sure that they caught some of the culture. Anyway, I knew back then that was going to be the way we were going to continue and grow, although I left the business. Today, I don't see anybody And Duncan, you were talking about your big empty building there. I'm sure you've had thoughts like, what am I going to do? Because we're getting a lot of things done, and I have a lease here, maybe you even own the building, but you certainly wouldn't go out and build another building. So I think this work from home thing is probably going to be pretty permanent to some degree.
Yeah, I would agree. What we see is our commission salesmen, they like the work from home. And I think that's, I call it being around our culture. They call it me being over their shoulder looking at them working. So they kind of like the freedom, and they're commission salesmen, and that's fine. So they, over and over again, they're pretty damn happy right now. Our support group and our salary workers, they tend to want to come back. And I think some of that is because just the fear of a job and like, well, hell, I'm not working. I'm really not doing much of anything at home. Do they really need to bring me back? So I think they want to make sure that they have a job. And I think we're all learning the amazing things technology can do. So yeah, I don't think there's any question, Jay, things change. I mean, we have, we had Baptist come up, and Dr. Threlkill came by and looked at our office space, to kind of talk about coming back. And I think his quote was more of, my trading floor was a petri dish of COVID. So that was pretty much that we weren't coming back anytime soon. But, so we have to start saying, okay, what do we want to do? We know that we have salespeople who need office space. So we've turned kind of our boardroom and our meeting rooms into sound rooms where they can come up and do these kind of calls and look the way they should look, presenting themselves. We've talked about going out and actually renting some temporary, not temporary office, but an office space where you can go rent by the hour, basically, where if they need to get on and do a nice call. I don't want to keep bringing them up here to the office around people. So if we can put it on somebody else, then we'll do that. But yes, there's no doubt changes are coming all over. I think we will see changes, and we don't even know places we'll see changes going forward. And, a lot of it's going to depend on how long this lasts. If we're doing this same thing 12 months from now, it's going to be even more changes than we're thinking about. And so I don't think we'll ever see the workforce look the way it did before now.
But, Jay and Duncan, I could say one thing about the working from home thing, talk about changing. I will do a lot of work in the house, and then I go out to the barn way in the back of my property. I'll be back there. And my wife said to me recently, she said, what do you do out in the barn all the time? What are you doing out in the barn? And I said, well, among other things, I'm preserving our marriage.
Yeah.
So this working from home brings there's some other challenges. Right. I said, we've been married 48 years. I'd like to go another 20 if we can do it, So there is some challenges for all of us, right?
And I'll tell you, this is literally, there's no question, space is good. So we'll always, we've talked about, bringing people up. Maybe you have 3 groups or 4 groups of 25, whatever. And they can come up and they work for 2 weeks, and then they off for a month, or they work at home for a month. I think it's important culture-wise, and I think people do like to come back. I think they're in a little bit of a honeymoon right now, but after time, they're going to want a place where they can go work. And I'll give you another example. I just got a text from my head of operations who is on quarantine because his wife was around somebody who had it, and we had somebody else coming in and helping operations. And now literally just came over. She's going to have to go in quarantine because somebody in her husband's office coworker is now tested positive. So there we are having to change. And we have plans for the next 3 weeks that literally while we're on this call have totally changed for the next 2 weeks. So that's the kind of stuff that's happening every day, everywhere, and you can't get away from it.
Yeah. So Duncan, do you, just looking back to before March 15th, was there anything that you wish you had done to prepare for this? Obviously not knowing it was going to happen.
I wish I would have shorted the stock market for about 30 days, and then I would have bought it all back and then ridden this thing up high again, right? You know what? I'll be honest. We have different business lines, and we've talked mostly about the bond business, but, we're in apartments and assisted living and obviously in the wealth management side. And we have great leaders and good people running those companies. And so it's been awesome watching them do it. Because of the business we're in, we have to send people home to work off site anyway. So probably if it would have been anything, March 15th, we shut down. March 16th, I'm in Best Buy buying 60 laptops for everybody to get them home, right? So maybe made us do this more where we had the ability, we were all on those call chains and all that, but not really talking, not using technology. So I think the one thing I wish is it didn't take me 4 months to get up to speed on Zoom call, that I would have been that day ready to do it. And just, so I put off technology more than I should have.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So people will go from in the office environment from desktops to laptops so that they can take it home. Probably 19 years ago, Bob Buckman was doing a presentation in a roundtable meeting, which I wish that I had. I've tried to find the video of it, but he was talking about when he was running Buckman Labs, he gave them from that time, this was 19 years ago, he gave them laptops that were the size of suitcases. Because at that point, he knew that somebody was going to wake up with the child at 3 o'clock in the morning and then have the idea that was going to solve a problem for somebody, and that they had the tools to work on it then. So I wish I'd listened to Bob Buckman at that point and seen the writing on the wall, because he would have been prepared. So for sure. What do you do about your employees if they all have good, I know today, doing the Zoom call from my house, I was a little concerned about a storm and losing power before that. Have you had problems with any of that, with your employees not being able to do things, or has it all worked out okay?
Yeah, we've had it. They're, if they're plugging into their Wi-Fi, if they don't get a good Wi-Fi signal at home. So our IT guys are reaching out. We're making them do this once again to see how it looks, how they sound, what they need. And that's kind of part of the deal, right? They're going to be required to have certain things. If they don't have a camera in their laptop, they're going to be required to have a camera. You can't, the speaker in your laptop is not as good as getting, one of those real speakers. I laugh and say, I've got my Johnny Carson microphone in front of me now. And I just think the more we've had problems. I think it's addressing them and making sure we know we're getting everybody everything they need to be successful when it comes to it. But there's no doubt when you have 100 different people on laptops at their home and everything else, there's going to be some issues. There's just no way around it.
So we're learning flexibility as the key word for 2020, right?
Right. And, we try to tell people to stay, to make a place that is your office at your home. Where that is, it's got to be somewhat quiet. It's got to be somewhat secluded. Obviously, you've got client information. You can't just leave it out on the living room table. So it is important to continue to push work ethic and remind them that they do have a full-time job. That's the other thing about this is it's amazing. We had to stop. People were like doing, were tweeting and doing Instagram in the, pool on a Tuesday cooking barbecue. And I said, you've got a freaking job. Why don't be, Instagram and laying in a pool. What are you, dumb? Your clients can see it. So, people have had to learn how to do it and do the right things.
Yeah, they don't make that mistake again, right, Duncan? They've learned their lesson. So, So, one of the questions we also always ask in these is, where do you see the future in 5 years? I'm very interested to hear what your crystal balls for both Mike and Duncan are for 5 years from now.
Well, I want to say that the Memphis Grizzlies will be the world champions.
I love it.
Mike Bruns will get back and unretire and run some corporation out there. Elvis is coming back. Soden's going to have something going on down in Graceland. Look, we got to stay positive now. And I think unfortunately, I think right now it's probably harder to predict than ever. And really politically, nationally, this country is divided, and you throw in a virus and you throw in all the racial stuff that's around it. And, we've got to come together as a country, and you would hope that something like this, I think in the past, we always saw it. I mean, in the wars and how, and then you had 9/11. I mean, obviously for my life, it's probably the greatest tragedy that I can ever remember, and watch what the country did. You hope that happens in the next little bit. You hope our leaders will push us that way. And once again, not to get on the political side of anything, the leadership on both sides, in my opinion, has not helped us become a country of one, or at least we can't have discussions that we need to have. So hopefully that's what we see in the next 5 years, as well as the parade down Main Street when the Grizzlies win the World Championship.
There you go.
I like that attitude. What about you, Mike? What do you think?
Well, I tell you, when I was in my business, I never made plans much beyond a year. We had 5-year outlooks and whatnot. So I've never been too much of one that looked much beyond into the future. But I would tell you, if you watch the news today, and it doesn't matter which one of the stations you watch, anybody in business that tells you they have a 5-year plan today and they're sticking to it, they're crazy. They're liars. They're full of it. There's no such thing. Because today, if we look back a year ago and when we look where we're at today, who would have ever dreamed? So I don't have a 5-year plan other than to take care of my family, however I'm able to do that in whatever methods I'm able to do it. And all the other stuff isn't really nearly as important. I suppose it is in some cases, but we do, like Duncan says, I think we need some good leadership. I think one of the things I've learned is that everyone can look pretty good when things are rocking along pretty good.
Yep.
When things are normal, everybody kind of, boy, he does a good job. Yeah, he's great. And then when there's a crisis, it's now we're going to judge character. Now we're going to determine who's who. And when we look at the political scene right now, or even in businesses, the dumbest people I've ever seen, the things that they do, they have no clue. The politicians, some of the mayors in our country, and it's like, are you kidding me? They all looked reasonably good a couple months ago, and they're fools. And that it's not just politicians; these are people that are leading companies that are making decisions and things. And because all of a sudden the crisis tested them, and most of them are a bunch of idiots.
Well, I agree. Good night.
Really, and it's not a Republican Democrat thing at all. I mean, but they're lousy leaders. They were skating. They have no clue what the hell's going on, and they finally got tested, and they're idiots.
Yeah.
So we'll hope that in 5 years they're all gone, and that their replacements have common sense, right?
That's what I'd like to see.
So Jay, do you have anything that you want to add at this point?
Well, do you either of you have any just good actionable advice for business owners, business leaders right now? I mean, we've covered a lot of ground, but
I looked at kind of the list of participants on here, and I would like to be asking those people on for their advice. So feel free to share it back to me. I think, I just don't think there's anything more important than communication right now, and true, honest leadership, and being very transparent. And I'm not sure that's not always what I would tell you, but I can tell you right now, there's nothing more important than good leadership and good communication.
I agree. What, Mike, you have? Oh, go ahead, Jay. Sorry.
I was just going to remind the participants, and it is a great list of other entrepreneurs and business owners and people running organizations. If you do have any questions or comments, just go ahead and add it to the Q&A, and we'll address it as a group.
Yeah, that sounds good. Any closing comments from you, Mike?
No, I was honored to be asked to do this, and if you look at all the people there, there's nobody on the participant list that I mean, they're as smart as anybody else on this call. So I mean, I'm glad I got the opportunity to share some thoughts, but I certainly don't have all the answers. But I will say, by the time I'm 90, maybe 95, I'll be a smart guy. You'll be one of the smartest guys I know. But I still got about 20, 30 more years to go.
Mm-hmm. We do have a question from Jay Myers. He says, what other technologies besides Zoom do you see being hot in the future? I sure wish I'd seen the future with Zoom. Do you see any other technologies?
Microsoft Teams is really what we've been using, and it's pretty unbelievable what they've done. Now, they had a limit in March where I think the most people could have on there was 10. They've now grown that. If you look at the NBA games, if you watched any of them and the live fans that are up and down the side, and that's all on Microsoft Teams. You can do it on your phone. You can do it on your thing. So the other one is the app Meet, M-E-E-T. It's another kind of virtual thing that we've used. But Zoom and Microsoft Teams has been the ones that we are using the most up here. And for Duncan Williams Inc., it's really been more Teams than anything else.
Interesting. What about you, Mike? Anything that you've seen?
Nope. I just learned how to use the Walkman. So
I have also seen an interesting that Leadership Memphis has used for a few groups that I've been on. It's called Lunch Pool.
Yeah.
And I think that's because it's a way to be able to really network a little bit more than Zoom, because what I wish that we could have done is had this conversation with the list of participants actually engaged in a conversation, because we do have such a great list of people, other attendees. So I think that technology allows you to be able to do that a little bit better.
I agree.
Well, if nobody has any other questions, I do want to make one thing that I will share with everyone is I have a picture. I will put it on social media today of Duncan at 8 o'clock yesterday morning in his tux top and his jeans, and I will share that with everybody. He was doing part of a video for the first annual virtual Society of Entrepreneurs dinner, which we will be airing on WKNO next Saturday night, August the 22nd. I've got the invitation right here. Most of you have had them. It's also on social media. And then I guess in closing, if nobody, I haven't seen one more question. Let me see if there's a question. And then Jessica.
While I was filming, Pearson asked me if I'd ever had a tuxedo on at 8 in the morning, and I said, well, I don't know that I ever put one on. I may have still had one on from the night before, so that was my answer to that. I'm sorry, Pearson. What was the question?
No, I was just going to say we discussed the fact that Crystal and a few other things might have, Crystal's hamburgers have been involved in that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Jessica Tavi just said, I so appreciate your time, perspective, and expertise. What are you reading or listening to these days for inspiration and insight? I do love that question.
Well, there's an easy answer. Entrepreneurial Insights Podcast.
Good catch, Jay. That was nice.
And before we hand off the question to our panelists here, I will say that one of the things that's most impressive about the interviews we did with Duncan is the values and characters that they communicated back then are still the ones they're communicating now. So it just reinforces their consistency, which is very impressive. But go ahead.
A good leader.
Yeah, you know what? I've probably done less reading because I find myself not kind of the white coat thing. I don't think they know the hell what they're writing, so I'm trying not to read. I mean, some of the stuff I've read is, books that I've just heard on a Zoom call or whatever. But there are some great organizations. I mean, the Fed has put out some great stuff. And, you can get on the call with the Fed governors and really hear, even though they're a lot different on Zoom calls, leadership calls. I mean, I think that's what I'm trying to find, through my YPO group or through whatever. They putting out these great opportunities to hear great leaders talk about it in a very short time, and you can ask questions too. So I've found myself doing more of that than actually reading on this, is listening to people and, the list of people we have today. I mean, to get all of us on a call and ask some of these questions would be awesome for me. So that's really what I've been doing.
Mark, are you listening or reading anything right now?
No, I just make a comment, though, that isn't it interesting? We're worried about the Zoom and the technology and all the other things on how we're going to get through. But at the end of the day, what Jay just pointed out, it's all the old-fashioned things that keep resurfacing: respect, leadership, communication, concern, empathy. They never go out of style. So no matter how we handle it with technology and everything else, it always comes down to the basics. All the old-fashioned things always hold true.
I think that's a great note to close on. Jay Myers did recommend a guy named Simon Sinek. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly, Sinek, that has some interesting thoughts about COVID and the future of business. So I think I'll share that also on our social media so that others can look into him. So, all right. Well, I think that's really all we have time for. I really, really appreciate you guys participating today. Jay, do you have anything before we sign off, or anybody else?
Want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here, and thank you for Mike and Duncan for sharing everything that you've communicated.
Well, and I'd like to say thanks. I know Pearson touched on it, and kind of sitting in that president's seat this year for our supporters. For our sponsors, it have been incredible to make next week happen. Jay, obviously what you're doing with the podcast is just unbelievable. But really our sponsors have been incredible. So all of us in the society should be thankful for those guys and gals stepping up. And it's been great with Junior Achievement and all the stuff that's happening there. What Lee's doing is just incredible. And I have seen the show, or at least remnants of the show next week, and it really is awesome. It really is going to be fun and different. I can't wait till we're all together. But Pearson has done a knockdown, drag out job of making sure this happens. So Pearson, cheers to you too.
Well, thank you very, very much. All right, guys, I'm going to close out with just saying that we're going to do this again on Zoom next month, because as far as I know, we're not going to be able to do it live and in person. We'll have Daphne Large and Karen Blockman-Carrier, which will be very interesting in the restaurant industry, speaking on September 17th at noon. So I will look forward to that, and you guys stay safe. I'll be sharing that picture. Make sure you look for it. See you later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you all.